Welcome, everyone, to the eighth annual high-level meeting of Caring for Climate. I am absolutely delighted to be introducing and moderating our first panel named From Paris to Glasgow, Progress on Climate Action Since 2015. This first panel will reflect, of course, on the progress to date since the Paris Agreement in 2015 and the reality that we are definitely not currently on track to meet the goals of the Paris Agreement. However, there has been incredible progress in a wide variety of sectors, in many of them much more rapidly than anyone has projected. And we know now we have the opportunity of a lifetime to capitalize on this momentum that we are witnessing and to meet our climate goals. We are here today to highlight the highest priorities for growing those positive signals and accelerating action. Leaders will share the lessons they have learned on their net zero journey and how to build on that progress to redouble efforts in the face of growing impacts and risk. Hopefully, these lessons will help the audience to be inspired and feel encouraged to take very concrete action. So I'm really excited to introduce our three panelists, Mrs. Sandra Wu, Chairperson and CEO of Kokusai Kogyo Co. Limited, Mr. Roberto Marquez, Executive Chairman and Group CEO of Natura and Company, and Mrs. Mary Shapiro, Vice Chair for Public Policy at Bloomberg LP and member of the TCFD Secretariat. A real welcome to the three of you. It's a real honor to be moderating a panel with such amazing experience and commitments you bring with your personal trajectory. So thanks a lot for being with us. And now, first, I would like to ask you all to introduce yourselves and tell us about where you're joining us from. So first, if I can start with you, Sandra.
Yeah, my name is Sandra. I'm joining from Japan.
Thank you. Roberto.
Hi, everybody. Gonzalo, thanks for having us. Excited to be on this panel with all of you and such an important issue. I'm Roberto Marques, and I'm actually calling from the US.
Perfect. Which part of the US?
I'm actually in New Jersey right now.
New Jersey, East Coast. And how about you, Mary?
I'm Mary Shapiro, and I'm joining from Washington, D.C.
Great. So, Sandra, thanks a lot for joining this late in Japan. We know it's 11 p.m. for you, so thanks for that extra effort. And well, again, great to have all of you with us today. Thanks a lot. And I would like to start now our discussion with this particular question, asking each of you to answer the same one. What are some of the steps your organization has taken on climate action since 2015, and how do you view the progress within your sector? So first, I would like again to start with you, Sandra, please.
Thank you, Gonzalo. Well, but first of all, let me start by noting that Kokusai Kogyo is a geospatial solution company in Japan with the track record of working with governments for over 70 years. We serve market in Asia. We've also been active in the field of international development for 50 years, but our main market is domestic. Well, you might remember Japan as the recipient of the Fossil Awards at the COP 25th, but the new Prime Minister has now committed to net zero by 2050. And even before that, there was a lot being done on the ground by both government and the non-state sectors. And just to give you an idea, Japan has the second highest number of companies that are SBTi certified and second highest number of companies in the RE100 initiative and the highest number of TCFD supporting companies. And not only that, over 180 local governments, including Tokyo, representing 2/3 of the Japanese population, 83 million people, are committed to become carbon neutral by 2050. And this is the progress here in Japan. And there is one thing I believe, and I have always argued at the global events like this one, that as the way business can contribute to sustainability is through their business strengths. So Kokusai Kogyo has walked my talk. In 2016, we revamped our corporate strategy, mid and long-range plans to in line with the new global agendas, including the Paris Agreement, SDGs, and the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction. We mainstream resilience, sustainability, and the climate action as our core guiding values. We also overhauled our product lineup. We identify areas where solutions are still lacking and directed our research and development resources to create them. And as a result, we continue to provide local governments the means, the solutions to make their net zero commitment a reality. And while we believe we can contribute the most through our business strengths, we also recognize the importance of becoming carbon neutral ourselves as an organization. So we joined the SBTi and the business ambition for 1.5 degree in June 2020 with a pledge to reduce emissions across our entire value chain. And we are, in fact, the first company in Japan in our sector, the survey and the engineering consulting sector, to commit to SBTi. It was very hard work for us getting to the pledge, and even harder work in delivering it, it's still ahead. But we got here, and so can everyone. We hope to lead the sector by example and spread the ambition of net zero in our industry so that collectively we can accelerate and keep global warming to within 1.5 degrees as a society. I will stop here. Thank you.
Well, thanks so much, Sandra. Just let me also refer to one aspect that is embedded into your narrative. The ultimate goal of the high-level champions is to activate the ambition loop, to mobilize non-state actors to be reflected at the end on the NDC enhancement from the countryside. And we are referring with Nigel this year that the best possible example that we have is Japan. What you have explained at the end is exactly what we need to see in each of the countries of the world. So thanks so much, Sandra, for your work, and through you to all of those business leaders and majors as well, as they have done a great job. So going now to you, Roberto, as Natura and Company is a company that is represented in so many countries on the world and maybe can help us again to shine a light on those leaders of the world, for them to also enhance their ambition. And so many people and I'm one of those, are using Natura as the example of the path that hopefully businesses can walk. So what are some of those steps for Natura, and how do you view the progress within your sector?
So good question, Gonzalo. So as you know, I reflect, since the Paris Agreement, a lot of things have changed for Natura. It became really a truly global company now, with companies like Avon, The Body Shop, Natura, and Aesop, really reaching out over to 100 countries, 200 million customers, over 3,000 stores, and most important, 6 million consultants and representatives who are really entrepreneurs, and we, very privileged to be able to working with all of them and transforming their lives to some extent. Related to the climate crisis, Natura's been carbon neutral since 2007. And since then, being able to reduce by a third its carbon emission. But we also try to hold ourselves even to a higher standard and pushing ourselves. And for that, we recently, early this year, introduced our 2030 commitment to life, which put a target for us to become carbon zero, achieve zero a net emission by 2030, right? Which is almost 20 years earlier than the commitment with United Nations. But the devil is on the details, as we like to say, and this goes also embracing scope 1, 2, and 3 in terms of net zero, which is very daunting, very challenging, because it's not only related to our direct emission, but also what we purchase and consume. But most important on scope 3 is to become net zero on the end-to-end supply chain, which means that we needed to bring together our partners in supply chain, since we are committing ourselves to that very ambitious target. We don't know exactly how we're going to get there, but the important thing is bringing the collective, bringing those partners, really making them very much aware of the importance of really achieving this net zero ambitions. Now, to your second part of the question about how the sector is doing, we see progress, but I think it's fair to say that it's not enough where we are today, 5 years after the Paris Agreement. And I think the call out for us with our commitment to life that talks about, climate crisis, protecting the Amazon, how we build a society that is more inclusive and reduce inequality, and how we embrace circularity as a whole and regeneration. It's a call to action to all of us, and working with our industry, civil society, science, in a multilateral approach, because those are the only way that we're going to be able to find and answer some of those very challenging questions that we face. I would like to finish this first question, Gonzalo, just saying, for us, there is no place for competition when, humanity is at risk. So the call to action is really for the power of the collective, all of us working together, government, civil society, NGOs, in terms of really finding the solutions for those very challenging and daunting tasks that we have in front of us.
Thanks so much, Roberto, and thanks to Natura & Co for the inspiration that you have set not only in the UN Global Compact community, but in the B Corp, the B team, so many other communities and business communities that are using the inspiration that Natura is bringing. And that work that Sandra and Roberto has explained is incapable to be delivered without a financial market that is also aligned. So Mary, I would like to not only refer to the main questions, but it would be great to listen to you about the momentum around TCFD since it was created back in 2015.
Thank you, Gonzalo. It's very nice to be here. And just to quickly remind everyone, the TCFD, the Task Force for Climate-Related Financial Disclosure, was announced 5 years ago at COP. And it was done in response to a Financial Stability Board request to try to improve the quality and the quantity of climate-related financial disclosure in the marketplace so that investors, lenders, and insurers could make better informed economic and capital allocation decisions, to aid policymakers in understanding the impact of climate on the stability of the financial system, and for central bankers and others, the ability to understand better what the impact of climate was on the individual financial institutions that they supervise, and then more broadly to help smooth the transition to a low carbon economy. And I have to say that thanks to leaders across government, business, and finance, climate risk disclosure is seeing extraordinary uptake around the world. When we released our recommendations in 2017, we struggled to get 100 CEOs to publicly commit to supporting the need for better information on climate risk and an analysis of climate-related risks. Since then, the uptake, as I say, has been tremendous across public and private sector, and really accelerated the adoption of the TCFD disclosure framework. What we've seen over the past 3 years is really broad appreciation by corporates that climate risk is indeed material financial risk. We've seen rapidly increasing demands from institutional investors for decision-useful climate disclosures, and a realization by the official sector that this disclosure is essential to the functioning of the capital markets and to countries' ability to meet net zero commitments where they've made them. So in terms of the numbers, we have over 1,600 supporters now, including companies from 77 countries with a combined market capitalization of $15 trillion. and financial firms, including the world's largest asset owners, with responsibility for $150 trillion of assets, all supporting the TCFD. We've got more than 110 regulators and central bankers from around the world and 10 national governments that have endorsed TCFD, with 2 countries just in the last month or so, New Zealand and the UK, announcing the TCFD disclosure will be mandatory in their economies. And we're even seeing signs of progress in the United States, which is very good news and very heartening for me.
Amazing. Thank you, Mary. And thank to the 3 of you for those inspiring stories. You are truly climate champions. And when we refer to our work with Nigel as climate champions being named by the UN, most of the time is about celebrating the efforts and the commitments and goals of others. So that this is a moment when I have to clap and stand up and properly recognize all the work that you are doing. And then the other part of our work is to increase the ambition, like adding zeros in terms of the new members and showing also what is not only possible, but also what is now happening, right? So let's move to the part where I expect that you will now inspire others to join with very concrete examples of how you're doing it. So in your case, Sandra, your company's mission is to save the earth, make communities green, and you are involved in initiatives on renewable energy, including with local governments. How does this help to align with your 1.5 degree ambition? How do you mitigate some of the challenges you face? It would be great for the audience to learn from Kokusai Kogyo.
Yes, Gonzalo, thank you for the question. I mentioned that Japan now has over 180 aspiring zero carbon cities, but our local governments have been working since Paris to meet a national 26% emission reduction target by 2030 and 80% by 2050. And in fact, they have been legally required to do so based on a 2016 law in line with the Japan's NDC. So all local governments across Japan are, first of all, expected to mitigate 40% of the 2030 target through increased energy efficiency of their government offices and the public building. And additionally, larger local governments units have been required to plan and implement area-wide project tailored to their specific local conditions, combining various means, including renewable energy, local production and consumption of energy, clean transport, zero energy homes and office, enhancing carbon sinks such as forest, and many, many others options to achieve the rest of the 2030 targets. And this push to 2030 is meant to be a pilot to help each local government fine-tune their next stage, a roadmap to 2050. So in my field, the tide has definitely turned, and our market is now focused on a zero carbon society. To meet challenges, we created a unit in my company that acts as a mitigation travel guide for local government clients. And within this unit, there is a planning team that works with cities to create their vision, and an implementation team that identify and, where necessary, invent the means to achieve that vision. The planning team would, for example, help city put together a roadmap from all the options I mentioned earlier, obtain subsidies, and handle the monitoring and the reporting associated with such funding. The implementation team would fill the gaps. For example, when city energy efficiency budgets are tight, we organize local businesses into equipment leasing agencies, which is a cost and energy saving setup that also stimulate the local economy. We help local governments establish the local power companies, PPS, in addition to the physically building and operating their renewable energy plants. We also connect a remote village to urban city district in energy partnership that benefit both parties by making a new renewable energy plant economically feasible to one and reduce the carbon footprint of the others. These are some of the ways we provide the local governments the means, the solutions to make their net zero commitment a reality. Our direct involvement in local business setup has been taken by local governments as proof of our investment and the commitment. So as a result, we are established as a strong partner in climate action, along with other stakeholders in many communities across Japan. So that is all for my answer.
Thank you, Sandra. And Roberto, and adding a new challenge to keep the answer as brief as possible. We're running short of time. So your company is one of the earliest Brazilian companies to commit to Science-Based Targets initiative, and therefore, how can we create transformative change from early adopters to encourage wider adoption at the speed required?
Yeah, Gonzalo, listen, one of the key challenges that we still face, even on science-based targets, is how we keep track of things, how we measure things, how we make sure that we create the same discipline as companies normally run their P&Ls and look at their market share. For that, I would say it's very important to partner with the right companies or support it. And I would start saying, for sure, the UN Global Compact. Make sure that you connect with your local branches and chapters, because they can help bring it to life, the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, in a way that it becomes very tangible, right? Another suggestion is partner with the B Corp, the B Labs. I mean, they bring a very practical, tangible ways that we can really track the progress that companies are doing in emission, in climate, in social inclusion, in a way that facilitates a lot of companies that are starting this journey, right? And I would, last but not least, also talking about the task force on climate financial disclosure. We are partnering now with them to make sure that we can really track those things and disclose those things in a very transparent way. So in a nutshell, Gonzalo, is, we can solve those things on our own. And I think a lot of companies have that still idea that they can find the solutions within themselves. It's very important to reach out, find the right expertise, find the right partners that can help, really advancing that agenda.
Thanks so much, Roberto. Mary, how are companies and investors transitioning to a net zero economy through greater transparency and disclosure?
Well, it's clear that without good climate-related financial information, markets can't adequately price climate-related risks and opportunities correctly. And as a result of that, they may face companies and countries a rocky transition to the low-carbon economy with sudden value shifts, destabilizing costs, and industries aren't able to rapidly adjust to the new landscape. It's for that reason, actually, that the TCFD recommends that companies conduct scenario analysis to test the strategy, the resiliency of their strategies under different climate scenarios, 1.5 degree, 2 degree, and so forth. It's so important for the company to understand what the impact is from scenario analysis on their strategy so that they can adjust their strategy if necessary. And of course, it's really important for investors to understand so they can direct capital to those companies that are best prepared in the face of climate change, to take advantage of the opportunities and to manage and mitigate the risk. But I think importantly, we've spoken a couple of times this morning about the number of countries and the EU working toward achieving net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. 2060 in the case of China. There are over 100 countries doing that to date. And many of those jurisdictions are going to legislate disclosure of climate-related information in order to support the necessary market transparency to understand if industry is going to be on the path to transition in a way that will allow the national government to meet the commitments that it's made, or whether additional policies or measures are necessary. So this will really illuminate, I think, the way forward. And finally, I would note something I just learned a couple of weeks ago. As an example, the Irish Sovereign Wealth Fund has said it will not invest in companies that do not have a transition plan. And a large number of other sovereign wealth funds, in fact, representing about $30 trillion of assets under management, have recently committed to engaging their investee companies in TCFD disclosure for the same reason. They want to invest in companies that have a plan and are on the path to achieving net zero.
Thank you, Mary. And our final question as we wrap up this first panel, could you please name one action or project your organization has worked on to achieve the goals of the Paris Agreement that you would encourage all your peers to take? And I would go the opposite, starting with Mary.
Well, this won't surprise anyone. I really encourage companies to support the TCFD disclosure framework. It's scalable. It works around the world. It's comfortable because it looks at issues in the same way that you generally look at risk of any type of across a company, to support the TCFD and to begin on the path of actually implementing the recommendations and providing the disclosure to the marketplace.
Thank you. Roberto, very quickly.
Yeah, for us, again, partner with institutions like B Corp, right? Very important. We've been certified. We extend their certification now to, the Body Shop this year, to ESOP. We just been recertified as Natura, as a company now as a Natura & Co group. That is very important. I also would mention, make sure that you also protect our natural resources. And Natura, we have a firm commitment to protect the Amazon, which is such an important component of us achieving, net zero emission.
Thanks so much. And finally, Sandra, please.
Yes. In my company, and actually in all of Japan, we tend to work on mitigation and adaptation hand in hand. For example, why I only mentioned the mitigation earlier, local government mitigation plans in Japan contain many embedded elements of adaptation and disaster resilience, guided by the national policy document and the subsidy requirements. However, when I look around globally, I notice mitigation and adaptations are still in silos. So this pandemic is a wake-up call. We need to urgently address our short-term resilience as well as our long-term future. So my message to my peer is we need to take both mitigation action and adaptation action to achieve the Paris Agreement goals. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Sandra, Mary, Roberto, for the work that you're doing and the inspiration that you brought. It's been a privilege to be moderating this panel. Has been great contribution to the conversation, and of course to all the participants who have been engaging with us. Now, after a 1-minute break, we will continue with our second discussion named Ambitious Goals for a Green Recovery and NDC Enhancement. So we'll go now for a 1-minute video and be back here with the next panel. Thank you very much.